วันนี้ครับยินดีต้อนรับเข้าสู่เว็บบินาร์ตอน CyberSecurity Game Changing ครับพลิกเกมการตั้งรับภัยคุกคามในมุมมองแบบใหม่ๆนะครับวันนี้นะครับเราจะมากับพาร์ทเนอร์ของเราครับด้วยกัน2ที่ก็คือForcepoint และก็ SecHard ครับก่อนที่จะเริ่มกันนะครับขอขอบคุณทุกท่านที่ให้ความสนใจในการเข้าร่วมในวันนี้มากเลยนะครับเซสชั่นของเราครับในวันนี้ครับจะมี2หัวข้อด้วยกันก็คือ1เลยก็คือรวมพลังการมองเห็นและการควบคุมครับ Uniting Visibility and Control Security Cloud จาก Forcepoint แล้วก็2ก็คือด้านแรกการป้องกันทางไซเบอร์ Automate Hardening Issue Defense โดย SecHard นะครับเนื่องจากเซสชันของเรานะครับทั้ง2เซสชันนี้จะเป็นภาษาอังกฤษนะครับทางเราเลยจะมีการ wrap up ทั้ง2 solution ให้นะครับโดยทางทีมงาน Network 3ของเราเนี่ยเพื่อไม่ให้เป็นการเสียเวลานะครับขออนุญาตเข้าสู่หัวข้อแรกกันเลยนะครับ Uniting Visibility and Control Security Cloud by Forcepoint. Please welcome Terence, our speaker for today.
Thank you very much. Give me a moment. Can see?
Hi.
Can see?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Sawadee krap. My name is Terence. I'm the solution architect for Forcepoint for the ASEAN region. So today I'm going to share with you how we can unite visibility and control from with Forcepoint. All right. So to start with, let's talk about the evolving landscape today. All right. So we see these 4 different aspects happening in today's technology landscape. Things like data sprawl, fragmentation, where you see a lot of organizations today have data spread across many different areas. They could have data that you are keeping in your conventional server farms, your data keeping in AWS, your cloud storages, AWS, Azure, Google. You have data sitting in endpoints. So data is everywhere today, right? And you also see organizations today adopt the use of generative AI, right? A lot of people today use Gen AI in their daily tasks, right? Use ChatGPT, use Copilot, use Gemini to actually improve efficiency in their daily work as well. There's still aspects of governance, regulatory pressures, right? A lot of organizations are still looking to implement security controls to actually meet regulatory compliances and governance requirements. And last but not least, we also see things like security stack fatigue, where you have organizations, companies look or acquire, purchase or procure many different solutions to actually help with their security landscape. However, sometimes when you have too many silo solutions, they don't really work well with one another. They don't really integrate with one another. You end up having to manage too many different solutions, too many different controls, and that causes the security stack fatigue, right? So let me just illustrate you an example or paint an example of the day in the life of how sensitive data will move. So we take, for example, a sales representative in any organization. So we have this guy called John, all right? So what the first thing when John comes to work, he goes to he logs into his Salesforce, right? He runs a report on some strategic accounts. After that, he downloads a copy of that report to his local machine or his laptop, and then he uploads that file to SharePoint, maybe to do some collaboration with his team. And then he gets some assistance from ChatGPT to maybe summarize some of the points in the report. And then in the end, he shares that report through email and maybe through Slack as well. All right. So just taking into account this scenario, you see that, there is 5 different ways that a single report has already gone out to many different locations, right? So you look at this, the data that was generated from the CRM, which in this case is Salesforce, could contain personal information, could contain like PCI, credit card information, or intellectual property. The file that he extracted from Salesforce was an Excel. He stored it in his laptop. He uploaded it to SharePoint. He used ChatGPT to summarize the report. It goes out through the internet, and then maybe he shares the file through an email and through Slack, right? And the sensitive information already being sent out. So with this one activity alone, data has already been sent out or proliferated to 5 different locations within minutes. So we need to actually have a sense of control, a visibility, and as well as control to ensure that at every point where the data is transiting through, whether it's through the network, whether it's through endpoint email or whichever, we want to also be able to ensure that if it's not supposed to go through these specific channels, we want to be able to block it as well. But the first step is also having that visibility. Another use case, just to share, right, is like another example like just now. This is in a sense of a financial data, right? So a banker downloads some financial documents from the client or receive some financial document from the client. They receive the copy, they downloaded it to their local device. They then share the device, share the plan through collaboration through Teams. Again, they ask tools like ChatGPT to analyze the report for some market insights and then shares the client portfolio through OneDrive and email, right? Same scenario, all right? 5 different areas that one single document received from a client has been able to be sent out to many different channels, right? Through web, through endpoint, to Office 365, to Teams, to ChatGPT, to OneDrive, to email, right? Okay. And one more example, the health. Let's take a health example, right? If you're in the health industry, a doctor is reviewing patient records and some research papers. Doctor downloads that copy to his drive, local device. He wants to then share it or upload that file to Box for some storage or maybe for sharing. All right. Again, ask tools like ChatGPT to analyze the document to get a second opinion, for example, and then later shares the report out through email and Slack, right? So if you see these 3 scenarios that I mentioned just now, whether it's the general sensitive information, whether it's health, whether it's financial information, without proper controls, one single document can be easily sent out beyond different channels just within minutes. So that's where the topic of like unifying the visibility and control comes into place, right? So we at Force Point here, we look at it with this approach, right? We start off with basically discovering the file, right? Or discovering where all the important data is sitting across your environment, right? That's the discovery part, right? And then after discovering the file, what do you want to do with it? You want to then classify those data, right? You want to make sure that it has some sort of sensitivity attached to it, right? Whether this sales document, this IT document, this operations document, is it a public document? Is it an internal document? Is it a confidential document? So after you discover and then classify, you want to then prioritize, right? Look for all the high impact assets that you have discovered and classified, and then create a control around it, right? That's where the remediation step, the next step actually comes in, right? You want to introduce elements of like user analysis, user behavior analysis, right? You see things like we use terms risk levels, user behavior. We want to understand what the user is trying to do with the data, and then see whether and assess whether this user is a risky user or just doing business as usual, right? And then ultimately, in the end, we want to do the protection, right? If a data that you're keeping within your organization, this is of utmost importance. This is data that you do not want employees to be accidentally, sending out, whether it's accidental or intentional, right? That's the protection phase. So a entire security framework actually requires organizations to look at all these 5 different aspects. You do not need to actually, it's not really sequential in a sense. You do not need to follow a sequence, but it's sort of like the more realistic approach that usually a lot of organizations, they will start off with the discovery and classification before they finally protect. But in the past couple of years, before technologies like data security posture management was introduced to market, a lot of the organizations practice the last 2 steps first. Actually, they put controls and protection in place. All right. So those organizations which already have protection and control, remediation and protection, they now want to shift left and see how they can enhance the data security framework. Then they were by doing things like discovery, classification, and prioritization. For new organizations today who maybe have not embarked on this data security journey, this could be a suggested approach for them as well. They can follow these 5 steps, right? So this is how we approach data security in Postpone, right? And we do that with an approach we call data security everywhere, right? And this there's a new element that we introduced, which we call it like a self-aware sort of like data security approach, right? And this is, again, like I mentioned, the 5 different steps: the discovery, the classification, the prioritization, remediation, and protection, right? Covering the 3 basic use case of data, right? Data at rest, data in use, data in motion. And how we achieve this by these 6 different sort of like use cases, categories, we introduced things like I mentioned, understanding behavior of the user using behavior analysis. We can do risk scoring to identify who are the high-risk users within the organization. We introduce things like posture control to make sure that we assess and map out who has access to what sort of data within the organization, right? Across all your different repositories that you are maintaining. There is elements of like usage of even AI in our solutions as well, right? Particularly on one of our solutions, which is the data security posture management, all right, where we actually use AI to help with the classification and discovery of the data that you are retaining or keeping within all your different data sources, right? And last but not least, you have things like incident workflow. When you implement tools like data security, data loss prevention, right? When an incident happens, what are you doing to remediate that incident? What is the workflow that you want to take, right? Like notifying data steward, a business unit head, all right? And then seeing what sort of action that they can take once they investigate an incident. And also not just putting like enforcement into the environment and just block users. You also need to educate users or educate employees in a sense, right? So that you can basically also help to reduce the amount of incidents that can happening, because as users are getting educated about how to properly handle company intellectual property, company sensitive data by means of coaching, right? Then you will see like incidents getting less and less because users are now aware of how to manage and handle incidents properly, right? So with that, there's this again 4 different aspects or 4 different ways that we help organizations today with data security everywhere, with the unifying the visibility and control. We will help to do the visibility part where we see and protect data everywhere, right? By using things like posture management, cloud access security broker for the cloud, data security for the endpoint, the email, the web, right? We also help customers to streamline compliance and governance, right? So most of our solutions have a very vast library of pre-built, predefined compliances for the entire globe, right? So if you are not just doing business in Thailand, you have business in maybe other parts of Southeast Asia or maybe even the Western countries like US, right? All the required regulatory compliances are available already in most of our solutions, which you can enable to help with compliance purposes. And also, if you are embracing the use of generative AI today, you want to be able to enable your users to also safely use Gen AI without having them to, accidentally upload sensitive data into those generative AI tools, and then also help to relieve some of that security stack fatigue, because we can also offer our customers, a consolidated, unified platform where most of the solutions can actually integrate and work with one another. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but basically, if you look at this slide here, these are all the common use case, critical use case that organizations are looking at today, right? When they want to embark on a data security program or implement a data security framework, things like compliance, access governance, breach detection, right? So we have the means to actually help customers address all of these use cases, right? So some customers might not know where to start. Maybe if this slide resonates to you, all right, you can see maybe one or two of these use cases actually is something that you have an initiative that you want to achieve, right? You can always come and talk to the team as well, all right? So again, just to share a little bit again on the company, right? We are not new in the market, right? We've been in the market for the last 20 over years. I think this year is already the 25th year that ForcePoint is in the market. We continue to adapt to modern trends by adapting to things like cloud first innovations, right? We introduce elements of even now we are adopting AI into our solutions as well, right? That's why you see we have the term, self-aware data security. Okay. Again, we have been always in a market leader when it comes to data security. This is the more recent report in the IDC MarketScape, where we are, you can see here, we are the top in terms of worldwide DLP vendor assessment from IDC. And there's also another recent report that was released by Gartner. I think it was just maybe 1 week ago. There is now a Gartner data security posture management market guide, and we are one of the vendor representatives in that market guide as well. Right? So if you are actually exploring all these different initiatives, you can also again come and speak with our team. Right? So just to also share again, this is actually how ForcePoint can actually work with all these different technology partners in terms of integrating with identity providers like Samuel, ADFS, Spring Identity for single sign-on. We actually scan storages like AWS, Azure. We work with classification vendors like Microsoft. We can also work with ticketing systems like ServiceNow. We integrate with SIMS. We work with or secure Gen AI like ChatGPT, Copilot, and of course secure emails like Exchange and Google, right? That is data security everywhere from ForcePoint. So without going into too much detail, right? Just very high level, this is the technology stacks that ForcePoint is able to offer today under a single or a unified platform. So things like DSPM, DLP, secure web gateway, cloud access security broker, email DLP, covering all different channels, like endpoint Gen AI, secure web gateway, cloud applications, email. This is what we mean by data security everywhere. All right. So now I just want to talk a little bit about some of the product innovations that we have brought to market, right? Again, relating to the 5 phases that I talk about in the data security framework. So this is where we look at the 5 different areas. Like we want to help customers identify, what sensitive data they have, where is it being stored, whether it's risky or not, and how you want to remediate the risk, and how you want to protect against the data loss, right? So we start off with, of course, understanding where that sensitive data is, right? It's a very critical first step in the data protection strategy. You want to know where you are keeping sensitive data. And most organizations often, have maybe 50%, 60% confident that they know exactly where data is, but then there is another 40% that they maybe are not aware, and they know that there is data there, but they don't know whether it's sensitive or not. So how do we address this? We introduce the data security posture management. So data security posture management, a tool that is powered by the industry first, we call it AI mesh, right? What this AI mesh is doing is actually, if you're familiar with the Gen AI tool like the ChatGPT, the Copilot, the Gemini, they actually leverage on what is called the large language models, right? Large language model, but we take a different approach. We utilize small language modeling, all right, which is considerably smaller than large language model. And what this does is it actually enables organizations to use a ChatGPT-like Gen AI, but it can be something that you can fit into your environment itself, right? Without having to have a very large, powerful server, right? You will need a considerably smaller, powerful server, but you could actually essentially run this tool within your environment itself. You could put it in your server farm. You can run it from the cloud as a service. And this helps with classification as well. Why? It's because within our AI mesh itself, we already have a set like millions of pre-trained industry samples of data from different industries. So we will be able to identify documents as and when we are scanning them across all the different repositories, right? We'll be able to help you to catalog, tell you like these are maybe operations documents, these are IT documents, these are design documents, these are sales documents, for example, right? And then aside from just cataloging them, we will also be able to apply or suggest a classification level, right? Could be when I see this document, I see the content, it could be, I will suggest this is a confidential document, this is an internal document, this is a public document. So it actually helps in a way if you have data governance teams within your companies, right? Data governance team usually take a team of people to actually look at different sets of data, and they're doing really exactly the same thing, right? I'm looking at different sets of data. I'm actually trying to identify what sort of data it is, and then also apply a classification onto it. So we can actually, by utilizing this, we are actually helping to ease the burden of these data governance team by actually leveraging on these AI tools, right? And it's also, if you look at this, it might be a little bit daunting here, might be a little bit, see all these different lines connecting to one another. This is basically the explainable part, right? When we scan all your different data, right, we want to be able to tell you, right, when I scan a certain set of data, I must be able to explain how it links to another element or attribute, like maybe a PII might be linked to a corporate document, for example. So if we try to understand this, right? We see how the system, when it scans all the different data that you have across all your different data stores, things like you're keeping in your file servers, your SharePoints, your OneDrives, your Google Drives, right? We want to be able to explain how we come up with this catalog and classification. So this is the 5 steps that it takes, right? The AI mesh, it helps you to identify, helps you to apply a context by looking at all the different attributes, helps you to apply a sensitivity label, and it helps to actually map who has access to what sort of data as well, right? Okay, so that's the first part, identifying what is important. Then the next part is where, right? You need to know where is it being stored. So in most organizations today, it's already a hybrid environment. You have things like cloud platforms, right? You have maybe you're keeping data in AWS S3 buckets or Azure blobs or even Google, right? You're using vendors like Microsoft, right? Salesforce, Google, right? You're keeping a lot of data in OneDrive, SharePoint. You still maintain maybe some of your file servers in your data centers, right? You have databases. You're keeping maybe still on-premises SharePoint, right? You still maintain a local Active Directory or using Entra ID, for example, right? And then of course using endpoints and Gen AI as well, right? That is the where part. So we want to be able to connect or scan all these different locations where all this sensitive data is being stored, right? Then after that, we want to see what risk is associated to that data. Okay, so we do that by trying to understand these different elements or these different use case, right? We want to be able to know who has access to what data. We want to know even if that data maybe has some data sovereignty compliance, right? We want to be able to see if a data is stored within a location that is supposed to be, whether it's in compliance with the country's regulation. You want to look at maybe duplicate data, right? If you have like SharePoint, OneDrive, file server, and you're keeping the same set of data, right, or the same file across all these different locations, wouldn't it make sense to just have it in a central location? Because one of the other things is that storage is also a very important commodity in a lot of organizations today, right? Storage is needed in to keep data, of course, but then if you are just keeping data and you don't identify maybe those data is already out of the retention policy, right? Maybe data that is over 10 years old and you do not need this sort of data anymore. Maybe you can actually archive it or keep it somewhere else, or maybe even purge it, right? So helping to identify all these duplicate or outdated data is something that we also can do. And we want to look at if there's any sort of like overprivileged access as well, oversharing, right? If let's say a lot of users are, or there's maybe certain users or data that has too much access or by too many different users, right? And maybe it's a sensitive data. We want to be able to manage those permissions as well, right? And then we want to see the whether there's any unusual access patterns in those data as well. And then now after that, we want to remediate, right? How we want to remediate? We now want to do things like access permissions, right? We want to restrict maybe certain users, groups, people, if they are not supposed to have access in the first place. We want to be able to then manage those permissions, all right, or access. We want to be able to also prevent things like malware from spreading through the environment. We want to be able to delete those redundant data or housekeep those redundant data, and then also help to automate some of the remediation actions, right? You can configure some policies to actually execute, like let's say I find a file that is in a public sharing folder, right? And this is a confidential file. Once I see this file, this file shouldn't be even in this folder in the first place. So I want to have a auto remediation policy to move this file to a secure folder or repositories instead. All right, so that's an example of the auto remediation. Okay, And then last but not least is, of course, protecting it, right? Using data loss prevention, right? Looking at it from the endpoint, from the web, from the email, from the cloud apps. And the key thing here is if you have all these different egress points, right? Your web, your endpoint, your cloud, your emails, right? It would also make sense if it's from a data security standpoint to see everything from a single location, right? So you can manage DLP, data loss prevention policies from one single console, one single action plan, one single platform. So you can see like here, an example of a report, right? I can see different types of incidents related to like credit card health, source code, and all the different channels under a single centralized platform and console, right? And also, if you want to go one step further, we can introduce an element of what we call the risk adaptive protection, right? Risk adaptive protection is where we can then now move to a more user behavior based sort of enforcement, right? We can see here like there's a 0 to 100. This is when the user, if the user is deemed as a less risky user, I want to be able to not apply too strict controls, but I still want to observe what he's doing, right? And when the user starts exhibiting more high risk behavior, I want to now start to apply stricter controls, like maybe now I want to prompt him for confirmation when his risk score is like a 65, and then when he poses the highest risk to the organization, I want to now automatically start blocking all the sensitive information that he's trying to send out from going out. So this is what we call a risk adaptive approach, right? The policy will actually adapt to the user, right? According to how risky the user is. Okay, and just to show you an example, like the topic, unifying visibility and control, right? I'm going to show you this very simple example. Just for some context, you can see here the left-hand side of the screen here, this is the posture management, and the right-hand side of the screen here, this is a regular endpoint that is going into SharePoint, right? So to start off with here, just an example, in my posture management on the visibility side, I have already performed my data scan. In this example will be SharePoint, right? So I can see I have filtered down all the confidential files in SharePoint here, for example, right? So you can see it actually tallies with what I'm seeing on the right-hand side as well. So this file that you can see here, AMMA, here also has the AMMA. It's the same document, right? This is the scan result that I have from my visibility scan using the data security posture management. And this is the actual file on the right-hand side inside SharePoint, all right? The example that I want to illustrate here is that now that I have already have the visibility from my data security posture management, I also want to ensure that my control is put in place for all these confidential files, right? So in this scenario, I'm just going to speed the video up a little bit in the interest of time. I have a policy in my data security, right, my data loss prevention, that will actually look for the confidential tag, all right, the label that my data security posture management has applied to my SharePoint. So in this case here, if you look at my SharePoint here, you will see that there is actually an extra field in SharePoint that we have already tagged the files in SharePoint itself, right? So if I download this file now, right, and I check the metadata of this particular file, you'll be able to see the tag in the file in the demo later. So let me just again speed up the video a bit. So I download 4 different files basically of different sensitivity labels, like from public to general to confidential to internal. So my DLP is supposed to block the internal and confidential. The public and the general one will be allowed. Just to show that the classification has been applied, here you can see that my classification of highly confidential is inserted into the metadata of this particular PDF document, right? And just to show, show again, if I go to the properties of another document and then I look at the properties, this is confidential, then I will have one for public and then I'll have one for the general business as well. So now I want to see whether my enforcement works, right? All right. So my governance says that anything that's confidential maybe should or internal should not be allowed, right? So for this example, you see the first two files that I actually copy here were the public and general one. So now when I try to copy the file that was labeled as confidential and also the file that was labeled as internal, you'll see that my data loss prevention has actually prevented the file from being copied to the USB in this case. So this is how visibility and control work hand in hand together. So if I review my DLP alerts incidents, I will be able to see the like for this example, the file that was labeled as confidential and highly confidential was actually blocked based on my policy, right? So I didn't really have to look in this specific example or this specific demo. I didn't really have to look for a specific like content or keyword because as a baseline, I want to at first be able to block anything that is already suggested by the system as confidential or internal, right? So you can actually, instead of going to this sort of like enforcement action in the first place, the first step that some organizations can take is actually things like putting it in a monitoring mode. So you want to actually analyze the data movement of the files that the users are sending out before you actually move into the blocking mode. Or if you introduce the element of the risk adaptive protection, then you can actually, like when the user goes to like score number 100, then I will, automatically apply the blocking mode already, right? So before I wrap up my session, I just want to talk a little bit more about the use cases, all right, for when it comes to visibility and control. So of course, we talk about mitigating data risks, right? This is the 4 different use case when it comes to data risk mitigation. We want to, again, be able to discover where the high-risk data is being stored, right? We want to be able to remediate excessive permissions, all right? We want to be able to maybe reduce the amount of the redundant or the outdated data and then prevent those publicly shared files, right? The reason why of this, if you look at the statistics from IBM, is basically that last year, 34% of the data breaches included shadow data. What shadow data means is the data that most organizations are not aware that they are keeping, but could be sensitive as well. So when a threat actor or an attacker actually wants to exfiltrate data, they will just get whatever they can, right, within the environment. But if you as an organization are not even aware that maybe some of this data that you're keeping is maybe even sensitive in the first place, that could be again a potential liability and risk to the organization, right? In another sense, right, there's also an element of data access governance, right? We want to be able to manage users' access to whatever files that they are having the authority to access, but at the same time enforce principle of least privilege to make sure that they are only allowed to access what they need to, right, and nothing more than that, right? With data access governance, we also want to be able to help customers to achieve some form of automation of data classification. Like you said, usually data classification is a very user-driven activity where they need to actually log into the or use a tool like Microsoft or even our classification. They need to be able to apply the label, but this needs some sort of awareness or even practice or enforcement within organizations, because sometimes users they might not realize that they need to be classifying or labeling their files, right? So if you want to automate some of that, then this is something that we can also help organizations as well, right? And then of course to remediate some of the overexposed documents, those which has organization-wide or maybe even public sharing sort of files, right, which could be potentially sensitive. right? And last but not least, right, control is where we want to implement the control for the breach prevention, right? We want to be able to have a consistent set of policies, right, across the platform, right, whether it be on your endpoint, your cloud, your web, your email, right? We want to have a single set, consistent policy that can be applied everywhere, right? Hence the term of data security everywhere, right? And then we want to be also able to drill down, right? Whenever an incident or an alert happens, right? We want to be able to view and understand very deeply, why exactly this incident happens, right? We want to also be able to help detect early indicators of a potential breach, right? Using tools like data security posture management, data detection response, data risk adaptive protection. And finally, we want to be able to monitor the risks as well, identifying the high risk users, right? Based on the activities that they're doing. It could be even, for example, a user is like maybe over the weekend, when they're not supposed to be working, they are backing up a lot of corporate data into maybe a personal hard drive, for example, which according to most organization policy, personal corporate data shouldn't be backed up into a personal device, right, or a personal removable media, right? And because of, again, some just to say the statistics, right? Usually, when a data breach happens, the average time it takes to actually detect a data breach could be even more than half a year, right? A lot of organizations will you typically detect a breach happening, maybe even only half a year after, right? So with that, that is how we can actually help organizations, help customers to actually unify two aspects, like as per the topic. We help you to identify, we help you to gain visibility of all the data that you are keeping across all your different data sources, data stores, your endpoints, your cloud, your email, your web, and apply the control to make sure that the sensitive data is not being shared intentionally or unintentionally to the different parties, right? With that, that is the end of my session, right?
Yep. Thank you, Terence. Well, before you go, we have a few questions.
Yes, sure.
So yeah, well, we've been asked from the customer if the database is based on PEM, like they're using NAS file share in their and in the network, and
yes,
do they have to use the DSPM or like the DDR?
Okay. If it's a NAS storage, right? So if it's a NAS storage, if you want to be able to discover, like I mentioned, if you want to be able to discover and catalog the data inside the NAS, you can use the SPM. Right? You can use that. Yeah. The DDR just now, I see this first question, there's the DDR here. Okay, so what DDR, maybe I didn't really explain the DDR, but DDR, if you're familiar with the term DDR, we call it data detection response. This is mainly used to identify if there's data being like touched or modified in a very high impact repository. If let's say your NAS is the high impact repository, you want to know if somebody's like going in, like maybe copying, uploading, deleting a file, and that is where you use the DDR, right? If you just want to have visibility, you want to know what you're keeping inside a NAS, then you can use the DSPM.
ครับผมก็คือถ้าต้องการที่จะดูตัว category สำหรับตัว NAS file share ครับถ้าเราก็สามารถใช้เป็นตัว DSPM ได้แต่ว่าถ้าอยากดูการ data in use ครับสามารถใช้เป็นตัว DDR ได้เลยแล้วก็สามารถเป็น is this available on prem right
Yes, it's available on prem. Yes.
สามารถเป็น on prem ได้ครับ and by the way does AI cover the Thai language?
Thai language is something that we can develop, right? We can develop. So that is actually a very valid use case for the AI, because by default, we are usually looking at English documents. So in the case of like Thai language, if we develop the Thai language model, right, and we put it into the AI, so then with that, we technically will be able to understand and translate Thai documents and then catalog the Thai documents as well.
ครับ
Yeah.
Okay able นะครับ Right. And by the way, is it agentless or do you have agent for the DSPM?
DSPM is agentless.
DSPM เป็น agentless นะครับแล้วก็อย่างที่คุณเทอร์เรนซ์กล่าวไปว่าจะสามารถตรวจสอบwe can inspect the chat GPT and line.
Okay, ChatGPT, yes, but only for enterprise version of ChatGPT.
ครับผมเป็นสำหรับ enterprise version เท่านั้นนะครับ Okay, we come to the last question, Terence. How do you count the license for the DSPM?
The license is we are typically our license is based on the number of users. It's a subscription license based on number of users.
ครับเป็น subscription นะครับ based จาก user ครับ Okay, thank you so much, Terence.
Thank you very much. ขอบคุณ
Thank
ค
you
รับ
very much ขอบคุณครับก่อนที่เราจะเข้าสู่เซสชันถัดไปนะครับผมขออนุญาตโปรโมทว่าทาง Force Point มีฟรีสแกน14 วันนะครับเราสามารถออกรายงานรีพอร์ตให้ได้ด้วยนะครับอันดับต่อไปนะครับเพื่อไม่ให้เป็นการเสียเวลาครับขออนุญาตเข้าสู่เซสชันที่2นะครับจากทาง SecHard นะครับAutomate Hardening Issue Defense by Brijesh Mishra. Can you please welcome our speaker, Ben?
Hi, thank you so much, Home. Hi, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Brijesh, and I appreciate each one of you for coming this webinar. And the topic that I'm going to talk about is very basic, but it is very powerful. Let me share my screen. You can see my screen, right? Home, can you see my screen?
Yes, clearly.
Wonderful. So I represent SecHard. SecHard is a Turkish and US based company. The problem that we solve for all the enterprise customers is automated security hardening and automated remediations. You know, Sec stands for security and Hard stands for hardening. So SecHard offers you automated security hardening and remediations built on CIS benchmarks. CIS is a global compliance organization that talks about security configuration management and security hardening. It is globally accepted benchmark for banks, insurance, telecom, enterprise customers, government customers, everyone. SecHard platform is absolutely an agentless. We do not need to install any agents on your machines, on your infrastructure, on your security tools, to connect it. It's an agentless platform. Like I said, automated security hardening gives you cyber hygiene, cyber posture, and helps you implement zero trust in your network. Now, whenever I talk to CISOs, I say the misconfiguration security is the big elephant in the room. It is not only a security topic, it is a management discussion. Why is it a management discussion? Why is it a big elephant in the room? Organizations have implemented a lot of security tools like antivirus, EDR, cloud security, identity and access management, SIM tools, DLP solutions. Why is misconfiguration a big elephant in the room? I'll show you the data. I'll show you the data. Look at the first report. This is from the Gartner research, April 2025. This research says 61% of CIO, CISO security leaders experienced a breach, a data breach, or ransomware attacks, or financial loss, 61%, due to failed misconfiguration controls. Due to failed misconfiguration controls, their infrastructure was highly misconfigured. 61%, despite having 43 cybersecurity tools in the place. This is huge, guys. Go and talk to any, if you are a customer, ask yourself, how many security tools have you implemented? Let's say, for example, this is a global survey, okay? Let's say, for example, a bank in Thailand has implemented total of 25 security tools, including all the tools. And let's say that particular bank has total 5,000 infrastructure, including your servers, your operating systems, your network devices such as routers, switches, firewalls, custom applications. Are you confident that all your 5,000 infrastructure and security tools, are they all highly configured to highest security levels? If they are not, the 25 security tools that you have implemented, you are still going to get a massive, ransomware targets. This is a survey by Gartner. We should be opening our eyes and looking back to our basics. That if Gartner is saying globally the organizations have implemented 43 cybersecurity tools, why are they getting 61% breaches from the misconfigurations? Because they do a manual, because there's no automated tool in the world that can do automated hardening and automated remediations except SecHard. So how are they doing the hardening? They're doing a manual hardening, my friends. Manual hardening. Manual hardening is very slow. It is error prone. That is why the breaches are happening. Look at this. Second prediction is even more scary. Gartner says 99% of cloud breaches will happen due to customer misconfigurations. That means our customers are going to do the configurations. They're going to do a manual hardening, because manual hardening is error prone. They are humans. They can make mistakes. It is slow. 99% of the breaches. We have implemented a lot of cloud security tools, which is good. But the problem is that the baseline security, the hardening is not a one-time effort. It's a continuous process. And you need an automated tool that can do a continuous hardening, remediations, and monitor your entire network. Otherwise, these are the data. Okay. Feel free to put a question. This post was written on LinkedIn by a CISO. He's a Chief Information Security Officer. He said, having right cybersecurity tools is not enough until they are hardened. He gave this example of the mosquito repellent. Look at this mosquito repellent. Despite the liquid being full and the repellent is switched on the third mode, still there's a mosquito sitting on the surface of repellent, absolutely unbothered and thriving. He said, this is the condition of cybersecurity today. Enterprises, governments have spent millions of dollars on firewalls, EDRs, SIM tools, identity and access management, cloud security, yet misconfigurations opening a door for ransomware. Why? Like I said, misconfigured gaps. The tools are not, there are a lot of misconfigurations in your infrastructure, in your cloud infrastructure, and the security tools that you are using. The problem is that you are relying upon manual security configuration. That is even a major problem. It's a problem. You cannot ignore that. Poor maintained cyber hygiene is ignored on those 5,000 infrastructure and 25 security tools, for example. They left unmonitored. Services are being open and not aligned with the real world threats because configuration is not done. It's not automated. It's a one-time hardening that has been done. It's opening all the doors and gaps for attackers, for ransomware, for other attacks. So all these tools that I have implemented in my infrastructure, ask yourself, if you are a bank, how many cybersecurity tools have you implemented, for example, and all the IT infrastructure that you have? If they are not hardened, and if they're not continuously hardened, it is like this liquidator, which is impressive but ineffective. Okay, my friends, please put a question. This is where the SecHard comes, okay? Unhardened systems are a magnet for cyber attacks. 80% of attackers exploit misconfigurations and weak security settings and unpatched vulnerabilities. 80%. I talked about cloud. Manual hardening is slow, inconsistent, and human error prone. That is why you need an automated tool which can do the audit, which can do the review, publish a score, do the hardening, and also monitors your infrastructure 24/7. And it's a compliance mandate. Every compliance in the world says hardening is a critical control. Whether it's a NIST, whether it's a CIS benchmark, whether it's a SOC, whether it's a HIPAA, whether it's a PCI DSS, the National Thai Bank also talks about the hardening as a critical control. Compliance is not optional. If you're doing a manual hardening, if unfortunately you get into any kind of a data breach or ransomware, your reputation goes down. There's a heavy penalty by the government. CISO loses a job, legal liabilities, heavy fines, legal exposures, reputational damage. Okay, so it's not an optional, it's a mandatory compliance. All right, just think about it. Unhardened systems are low-hanging fruits for attackers. And all the regulations talk about hardening as a critical control. So why can't we have an automated solution that monitors all my infrastructure and all my security tools? You can have a peace of mind. Then you can build a layer of EDR, SIEM, firewall, and all those tools. But if your baseline security is not strong, it is a problem. So ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce SecHard, automated hardening and remediation, a revolution, from chaos to confidence. Fix the vulnerabilities in your infrastructure, in your security tools before it becomes a breach. Like I said earlier, the platform is built on the CIS-based benchmark. CIS covers the depth and breadth. It's an agentless platform, so it's a very light. And automating to give you hygiene and zero trust. Cool. If no questions, okay, let me just talk about CIS benchmark. CIS has done the security scoring of all the IT assets in the world. For example, according to CIS, unhardened Windows Server benchmarks is only 21%. If this is a Windows Server, for example, this is not hardened. According to CIS, the security score of this server is only 21%. That means 79% of the surface is vulnerable for cyber attack if I do not harden it. Okay. Now let's say, how does the manual effort need? Let's say Windows Server, CIS audit. According to CIS, if I want to do a manual hardening of this server, I have to make close to 430 remediations manually. 430 remediations manually on one Windows server. Okay, and how will the remediations happen? I will have to write 430 PowerShell scripts. That means I need an engineer who is cybersecurity analyst as well as who can write a code. And talent is cybersecurity talent is a problem to find. Okay. All right. So this is a manual effort. Same thing. SecHard, the solution. SecHard can increase the hardening score from 21% to 95%. Same one. 21% to 95%. Automatic and effortlessly. With a single click of a button, it removes all the misconfigurations, all the weak security settings, weak policies, and increases the hardening score. So this is a solution. All right. Any questions? All right. So what problem do we solve? Like I said, misconfigurations are cause of #1 breach. SecHard continues to apply CIS-based hardening. Manual hardening is error-prone, slow, time-consuming, and inconsistent. SecHard automates it. Okay, SecHard automates the entire hardening. Compliance gaps across CIS, NIST, PCI DSS. SecHard maps the configuration to global standard and makes you compliant ready from the day one. Fourth point is very important. Lack of visibility into security configuration posture. CISO gets a single pane of a view to monitor and measure the hardening status across digital state. You get a central dashboard like this. Central dashboard. What is the security posture of your organization? Let's say you have 5,000 assets. What is a security score of all my Windows? What is a hardening score of all my Windows? What is a vulnerability score? What is for my database, for my routers, switches, firewall, everything? You get a central dashboard for all your IT assets like this. And you get a continuous enforcement. After implementing SecHard, we also keep on monitoring your network 24/7. Any questions? Okay. All right. This is a SecHard's zero trust platform. We call it as a cyber hygiene platform as well. In this platform, I have total 10 products. You see security hardening. We also have privilege access management. We also have asset management. We have vulnerability management, key manager, TACAX server, performance monitor, syslog server, risk manager. All the 10 products belong to SecHard, one platform. I'm only talking about security hardening. But if you want a PAM as well, we have a PAM as well. You want asset manager as well, we have an asset manager as well. So how does it work? One platform, all hygiene, total resilience. SecHard delivers a unified cybersecurity platform that gives you holistic cyber hygiene. It automates the essential practices like asset discovery and asset visibility with my asset management, configuration management, vulnerability assessment, hardening, and access control from one and single integrated solutions. Along with the security hardening, I am giving the vulnerability scanning for free to my customers. Okay. All right. How does the licensing work? Based on the number of assets, servers, switches, routers, firewalls, web servers, databases, email servers, they all consume 1:1 license. We also harden your laptops and desktops. In that case, 4:1. For example, you have 1,000 laptops, desktops, printers. How many licenses would you consume? By 4, 250. But if you have 1,000 servers, switches, routers, firewall, license would be 1,000. Okay. Whom can talk more about it? So along with the security hardening, like I said, I'm giving the vulnerability scanning for free. The vulnerability management will be free. Along with the PAM, TACAC server is given free. It's an on-prem solution. You can deploy it within your premises. If you want to deploy it in your private cloud, you can push it in the cloud. Okay, guys? No questions? No questions? Okay. This is a CIS control, Center for Internet Security. CIS has 3 guidelines. IG1, Implementation Guideline 1 for small businesses. IG2 for medium businesses. IG3 is for the enterprise businesses. CIS says, if any company implements all CIS safeguards like IG3, I can protect their network 94% of the time from the malware, from ransomware 92% of the time, from application hacking 98% of the time, from the privilege misuse 90%, from the targeted intrusions 95%. Okay, this is CIS benchmark claims. I'm very proud to say, with this platform, we can help you support 53% of IG3 of the CIS. That means one company, one solution can help you meet 53% of the CIS benchmark alone. Okay. In the IG3, they have 153 safeguards. We support 81 plus 3, 84 out of 153. Okay, guys, this is how the dashboard looks like. Okay, when you log in, on the left-hand side, you see all the solutions that we have. Like I said, the asset management, it discovers all your assets, gives your your IP addresses, your ping status, your account, your family, your vulnerability score, your asset score, your security score, your hardening score. Okay, this is absolutely customizable. Yeah. This is again, this map talks about all the IT assets that are spread across the world or across the Thailand in the region. All my platforms, spam, TACAX, all these tools. You see number of resources, records, alarms, sessions, security score. The average hardening score, average security score, average vulnerability score, average risk score, all the different graphs for dashboard. Okay. Some of the, we currently harden more than 200 types of the different products. Anything that exists from year 2003 onwards, we can do the hardening for them. some of our customers from the state, government, federal customers. In Thailand, we actually at a very advanced stage of closing few government customers and few enterprise customers as well. Thanks to Network 365, Mr. Sharampal, Boom, Manit, Sonia, the entire team, Suvipa, the entire team. Okay, and Network 365 is absolutely expert in SecCard solution. They're certified partner. Energy companies, retail, manufacturing, logistics, BFSI. Okay. Let me give you one case study. This customer is a Middle East, 2,500 different licenses. When we went to their office, we scanned their entire IT assets. We categorized them into different categories, all servers, firewalls, switches, routers. When we did the audit and review based on CIS benchmark, we published a score. Their security score was 22%. We also published a gap report. And after implementing SecHard, we did the audit again, and we see that we hardened the servers from 22% to 90%. Firewalls from 25% to 85%. Switches from 23% to 94%. Routers from 20% to 98%. This is a hardening we help them achieve. We on the Gartner Peer Insight, the current rating is 26. Fully automated security hardening. Fast and good reporting about your hardening of your organization. Automate your security, just relax. SecHard gives you peace of mind. I have one live case study from a CIO of a bank. Let me play it, okay, for 2 minutes. Just hear the experience. I'll skip the introduction part.
Istanbul Technical University. Development of banking solutions. We have 114 branches and alternative distribution channels like mobile, internet, and call center. There are also many integrations with government bodies, service companies, and corporate clients. I can say that we have a strong engineering team running the banking infrastructure, creating new applications, supporting existing applications, and third parties. Our first goal was security hardening, and the problem was that there were many types and versions of operating systems and network equipment. What we needed most was a solution that would provide security in the first place. SecHard takes security as the first consideration and consolidates different systems in one easy-to-manage user interface. To see different systems with their security grades all at once is a huge plus for us, because it increases our cyber resilience. SecHard's brand-independent hardening, auditing, scoring, and improvement capabilities makes our life much easier. We can now measure and report the security level of our devices. We can harden the systems according to CIS benchmarks and PCI DSS processes. So a less experienced person can keep an eye on the security levels and can apply the remedies. And if requirements get more complex, then an issue is created and escalated to a more experienced technical person. This way, we can follow our security vulnerabilities on a daily basis. In Turkey, we have to conform Digital Transformation Office of the Turkish Presidency's Information and Communication Security Guideline. Before the Digital Transformation Office audits, we prepared hardening scores on servers and network devices with SecHard, so we were able to provide a sound and reliable security report. After implementing the hardening tasks that SecHard recommended, the servers and network devices hardening scores were increased to 90%. That made us compatible with CIS and Digital Transformation Office standards easily.
All right. So that was the quick testimonial. Okay. What I can do now. Wait. Yeah. So what we are doing right now, we are offering a free POC to all our customers, a 20 days free POC. Okay, I don't have any, I have nothing to show now. So 20 days free POC for, no, 15 days free POC for 20 assets. It's absolutely free. Do take the advantage of free POC offer. Reach out to Poom and anyone in the Network 365, and we can start doing a POC for you. I'm done with my presentation. If you have any questions, happy to answer that. Poom, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ben. I have a few questions over here on the after the report they use. Can they use to as a compliant like ISO 2700 like all
Yes.
PCI?
1000, yes, 100%. Any compliance that talks about security hardening and security configuration management, you can comply immediately.
ก็สามารถ comply ได้เลยครับถ้าเป็นสำหรับตัว Sec Hard แล้วก็ and if they have machine with many applications like Oracle or web apps, how do they count the license?
So like I said, one server, one web application is equal to single licenses. Only endpoints like laptops, desktops, they are 4:1. If you have 100 Oracle applications, you need 100 licenses. If you have 100 applications, you need 100 licenses.
ก็ server web app ก็จะคิดเป็น1 license ครับ and if it's on cloud like AWS or Azure, can it also do hardening?
Yes. We can also do the hardening for cloud infrastructure, whether it's AWS, whether it's Azure, whether it's Google infrastructure, we can do the hardening for the cloud infrastructure as well.
สามารถทำ harden สำหรับ cloud structure ได้แต่ต้องดูทาง HDD อีกทีนึงI will get okay. Do Sechat have the cloud services?
No, we are not a SaaS platform. We can implement our platform on premises. We can implement on your cloud, on the customer's cloud. It is not a SaaS platform.
มันไม่ใช่ SaaS ครับก็จะเป็น on prem ต้องลงที่ตัว server อันดับต่อไปนะครับผมขออนุญาตเข้าสู่ช่วง wrap up กับคร่าวๆสำหรับตัวทั้ง Forcepoint แล้วก็ Sechat ครับโดย General Manager นะครับคุณเฉลิมพล อัศยุทธครับ
สวัสดีครับผมแนะนำตัวอีกครั้งนะครับผมเฉลิมพล อาสาครับจะเป็น General Manager ก็จะมา wrap up ในส่วนของทั้ง2 section นะครับโดยจาก section แรกนะครับก็จะเป็นตัว Sechat เมื่อสักครู่นี้นะครับที่ทางคุณเบนแล้วก็น้องภูมิทักษ์ได้มีการนำเสนอเดโมไปนะครับในเรื่องของตัว Hidden Attack Surface นะครับหลักๆก็คือในเรื่องของตัว Security Mid Configuration นะครับซึ่งในองค์กรของเรานะครับก็มีการลงทุนในเรื่องของระบบป้องกันความปลอดภัยต่างๆนะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็น Firewall นะครับ EDR CM หรืออะไรพวก Cloud Security ต่างๆนะครับแต่ในเรื่องของ Mid Configuration ในกระทั่ง Mid Configuration ในอุปกรณ์ Security เองนะครับก็ยังมีอย่างต่อเนื่องนะครับแล้วก็กลายเป็นช่องโหว่นะครับที่ทำให้ตัวแฮกเกอร์หรือ ransomware นะครับเข้ามาโจมตีนะครับแล้วส่งผลถึงตัวข้อมูลมีการรั่วไหลนะครับในเรื่องของ Mid Configuration นะครับก็จะเป็นแกปนะครับที่จะทำให้ในเรื่องของattacker นะครับในการที่จะเข้ามานะครับในการโจมตีต่างๆอย่างเช่นค่าของ username password ที่เป็น default นะครับหลายองค์กรนะครับเวลา implement เสร็จนะครับก็จะไม่ได้มีการ delete หรือใช้ค่า config ในเรื่องของ username password ที่เป็น default ของ product นะครับทำให้ในเรื่องของเป็นเรื่องของการช่องโหว่ในการที่จะโจมตีได้นะครับแล้วก็ในส่วนของการ maintenance นะครับที่ขาดการ maintenance ในเรื่องของ security ต่างๆนะครับหรือการตรวจเช็คตามวงรอบนะครับการมีการ verify ค่า config นะครับพวกนี้ก็จะทำให้ในเรื่องของความปลอดภัยหรือระบบ security แล้วเราค่อนข้างที่จะหละหลวมนะครับเพราะเราไม่ได้มีการหมั่นตรวจสอบในเรื่องของ configuration นะครับในเรื่องของการ unmonitor นะครับก็คือเราไม่ได้มีการ monitor ในเรื่องของ log หรือ monitor ของการ config ตามรอบก็จะทำให้ในเรื่องของตัวช่องโหว่นี้มีมากขึ้นแม้กระทั่ง asset นะครับ asset ที่มีมาใหม่ๆหรืออุปกรณ์ใหม่ๆที่เพิ่มเติมเข้ามานะครับขาดการ monitor อีกนะครับแล้วก็ไอตัว security control นะครับที่เรามีการเราอาจจะยังไม่มีการรีวิวนะครับในเรื่องของ base configuration ที่เป็นมาตรฐานหรือ configuration ที่เป็น hardening พวกนี้ไม่ได้มีการรีวิวนะครับให้ไปตรงตามในเรื่องของการ attack จริงนะครับให้ทันสมัยก็จะกลายเป็นช่องโหว่นะครับทำให้เกิดขึ้นได้นะครับซึ่งจากสถิติเองนะครับของ Gartner นะครับโดยเฉพาะในส่วนของ Cloud นะครับ 99% ของ Cloud Bits นะครับหรือการรั่วไหลจาก Cloud Solution นะครับก็มาถึง 99% ที่เกิดจากตัว misconfiguration นะครับเนื่องจากตัว Cloud เองเราจะใช้ DevOps หรือตัวใช้ Infrastructure as Code นะครับซึ่งบางที Develop เองเนี่ยก็จะพยายาม Dev ด้วยความรวดเร็วแต่อาจจะลืมในเรื่องของพวก configuration เกี่ยวกับ security ไปนะครับทำให้เกิดถึง 99% ที่เกิด Cloud Bits เกิดขึ้นนะครับแล้วก็ในส่วนของ Sec Hard นะครับก็จะมา hardening นะครับในช่วยนะครับในเรื่องของการที่จะกำจัดในเรื่องของตัว misconfiguration นะครับโดยทาง Sec Hard เองนะครับจะใช้ตัว CIS base นะครับในการ hardening ในส่วนของ operation ตัว OS นะครับ database network หรือ application นะครับเป็นไกด์ไลน์นะครับเป็นเบสในการที่จะไปตรวจเช็คค่า configuration ในส่วนของตัวอุปกรณ์เราต่างๆเหล่านั้นนะครับแล้วก็จะทำในเรื่องของ automate นะครับหรือ manual process ให้เราได้ด้วยนะครับในกรณีที่เรามีเซิร์ฟเวอร์ client หรืออุปกรณ์ network device จำนวนมหาศาลนะครับแล้วเราต้องไปตรวจสอบว่าค่า hardening ตรงไหนบ้างถ้าใช้คนนะครับอาจจะต้องใช้เวลานานเป็นเดือนนะครับกว่าเราจะ hardening เสร็จนะครับฉะนั้นแต่ตัวนี้ก็จะมีระบบ automate นะครับในการเข้าไปตรวจเช็คแล้วก็ทำการ hardening ให้นะครับทำให้ในเรื่องของการป้องกันทำงานได้รวดเร็วมากยิ่งขึ้นนั่นเองนะครับแล้วก็ในส่วนของตัว SecHas ก็จะมีตัว compliance นะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็น CIS NIST PCI หรือ ISO 27001นะครับที่จะเป็นเบสในการทำรีพอร์ตนะครับที่จะออกมาเพื่อตรวจสอบค่า configuration ออกรายงานได้นะครับแล้วก็จะมีการ maintain ในส่วนของ visibility นะครับก็คือจะมีการเช็คอย่างต่อเนื่องนะครับรวมถึงการให้สกอร์นะครับทำให้ทางผู้บริหารของเราสามารถเห็นสกอร์ในเรื่องของระบบความปลอดภัยขององค์กรได้นะครับแล้วตามตัวนี้เป็นเรื่องของ KPI นะครับตรงนี้ได้นะครับซึ่งในโซลูชันของ SecHard เองนะครับก็จะมี Serial Touch Orchestrator นะครับก็คือสามารถที่จะ implement นะครับในเรื่องของการ protection นะครับ visibility นะครับในเรื่องของ user data และก็ device นะครับพวก PAM ต่างๆนะครับซึ่งจะป้องกันในเรื่องของการaccess เข้าไปอย่างที่ device ตรงๆนะครับมี security hardening นะครับกับ remediation นะครับก็คือทำการ hardening นะครับแล้วก็ปิดช่องโหว่ต่างๆนะครับได้นะครับแล้วก็มีในเรื่องของตัว process automate ต่างๆมี RPA นะครับโดยยึดตามมาตรฐานนะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็น CIS NIST ต่างๆพวกนี้นะครับแล้วก็จะเป็นตัว Cyber Consolidation นะครับเนื่องจากก็จะมี Solution จำนวน10 Solution อยู่ในระบบเดียวด้วยกันนะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็น Access Manager PAM นะครับตัว Security Hardening นะครับ Device Manager ที่ทำการในเรื่องของตัว Monitor นะครับตัว Vulnerability นะครับมีในเรื่องของ Tag Act Performance Syslog และ Risk Manager โดย Risk Manager เขาจะคำนวณจากค่าของ Asset นะครับแล้วก็ในเรื่องของ Security Hardening กับ Vulnerability รวมกันนะครับเพื่อระบุเรื่องของAsset ตัวนั้นว่ามีขอโทษครับว่ามีความเสี่ยงจำนวนเท่าไหร่นะครับอันนี้ก็จะเป็นในส่วนของ security solution ของตัว SecHas นะครับซึ่งจากเคสนะครับ use case หรือ case study ที่ทาง SecHas เข้าไปช่วยนะครับในเรื่องขององค์กรก็จะเป็นในส่วนของตัว CK Energy ของตุรกีนะครับซึ่งตัวนี้ก็คือเขาสามารถที่จะเพิ่มสกอร์ในส่วนของ hardening ระบบนะครับเพิ่มขึ้นถึง95% จาก 21% ด้วยกันนะครับแล้วก็ลดของการ attack หรือป้องกันการ attack นะครับได้ถึง 65% นะครับแล้วก็มีตัวอุปกรณ์ที่เขานะครับเข้าไป hardening นะครับในตัวอุปกรณ์ของตัว CK Energy อยู่ที่ประมาณ 2,500 device ด้วยกันนะครับตัวนี้นะครับ อันนี้ก็จะเป็นในส่วนของตัว SecHard นะครับซึ่งจะมาช่วยนะครับองค์กรในการที่จะไปตรวจสอบนะครับตัวอุปกรณ์ระบบนะครับว่ามีค่า misconfiguration อะไรอยู่ไหมนะครับแล้วก็ไปช่วยปิดตรงนี้นะครับเพื่อลดช่องโหว่นะครับให้ได้มากที่สุดนั่นเองนะครับนี่จะเป็นโซลูชันของตัวSecHard นะครับต่อไปผมจะขออนุญาตไปที่ตัวของ Force Point นะครับซึ่งเป็นของเซสชันแรกนะครับความท้าทายนะครับในส่วนของระบบ Security ทุกวันนี้ก็คือเรื่องของ Data Landscape นะครับเนื่องจากตัว Data ของเรานะครับหรือข้อมูลของเราเนี่ยเป็นสินทรัพย์หรือ Asset ที่มีความสำคัญต่อองค์กรมากนะครับโดยเฉพาะตอนนี้ที่เรามี PDPA ขึ้นมานะครับกฎหมายที่มาควบคุมก็ถือว่าเป็นสินทรัพย์ที่อาจจะต้องเป็นสินทรัพย์ที่มีความสำคัญยิ่งยวดมากยิ่งขึ้นนะครับพวก sensitive data ต่างๆหรือแม้กระทั่งพวกทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาขององค์กรต่างๆพวกนี้นะครับซึ่งความ challenge ของมันก็คือว่าเนื่องจากเรามีการใช้งานนะครับเรื่องของระบบ security ที่เป็น standalone นะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็น firewall IPS อะไรก็แล้วแต่ซึ่งอาจจะซื้อแยกกันนะครับทำให้มันเกิดเรื่องของช่องโหว่นะครับหรือแกปนะครับในการที่จะ protection ในเรื่องของการโจมตีนะครับส่งผลถึงต่อ data นั่นเองนะครับแล้วก็ data spot นะครับคือเนื่องจากเรามีคลาวด์เกิดขึ้นนะครับเราเริ่มมีการใช้งานคลาวด์ในการเก็บ data รวมถึงเก็บบน on-prem นะครับหรือเก็บบนเครื่องของ user เองทำให้ตัวการกระจายของ data ที่เป็นข้อมูลเดียวกันนะครับหรือ sensitive data เนี่ยมีการกระจายข้อมูลออกไปจำนวนมากและขาดการคอนโทรลนะครับแล้วก็ในเรื่องของ Gen AI risk นะครับเนื่องจากทุกวันนี้นะครับ AI เรามีการนำมาใช้นะครับในเรื่องของการทำเรื่องของ Data ต่างๆเช่นเดียวกันนะครับทางพวก Cyber Attack ต่างๆก็นำ AI มาช่วยในการ Attack ด้วยเหมือนกันนะครับทำให้มีความเสี่ยงมากยิ่งขึ้นและสุดท้ายนะครับในเรื่องของความกดดันในเรื่องของตัวกฎหมายนะครับซึ่งประเทศไทยเองก็จะมี PDPA นะครับที่จะมา force เราในการที่จะควบคุม Data นะครับหรือแม้กระทั่งที่เป็นหน่วยงานหรือองค์กรที่เกี่ยวกับการใช้จ่ายบัตรเครดิตก็จะมี PCI-DSS หรือถ้าเป็นโรงพยาบาลก็จะมี HIPAA ต่างๆเข้ามาควบคุมดังนั้นตรงนี้ก็จะเป็นความท้าทายที่เกิดขึ้นนะครับซึ่งพวกนี้จะควบคุมในเรื่องของ Data นะครับซึ่งเป็นข้อมูลที่สำคัญนะครับForce Point เองนะครับเขาก็เลยมุ่งเน้นนะครับมาเรื่องของ Data Security First นะครับซึ่ง Force Point เนี่ยสามารถที่จะทำ Data Security Everywhere นะครับไม่ได้มองในเรื่องของตัว DLP อย่างเดียวนะครับตัว DLP จะเป็นการขอโทษครับ protection ในส่วนของ Data ที่เป็น in motion หรือ Data in transit นะครับแต่ตัว Force Point มีตัว Solution Data Protection ครอบคลุมถึง Data Access นะครับที่อยู่ในถังข้อมูลนะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็นพวก SharePoint OneDrive Share File ต่างๆนะครับโดยเขาก็จะมีโปรเซสนะครับเกี่ยวกับการที่จะเข้าไปดูแลตัว Data ของเรานะครับโปรเซสแรกก็คือการ Discovery ครับก็สามารถที่จะสแกนแล้วก็แมปตัว Sensitive Data นะครับได้ทุกที่นะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็น OneDrive SharePoint On-prem นะครับแล้วก็จะมีการ Classify ครับก็จะใช้ AI นะครับในการที่จะเข้าไปช่วยในการ classify พวก data context หรือ sensitive data ต่างๆเพื่อจัด category ให้เรานะครับหลังจากนั้นก็จะมี prioritize ครับ focus high impact base นะครับก็คือเขาจะมีการจัดในเรื่องของ category นะครับในเรื่องของ high impact data เพื่อนำมา present ให้เราเห็นว่าตอนนี้ data พวกนี้เราไปแอบซ่อนอยู่ที่ไหนบ้างนะครับหลังจากนั้นตัว Force Point เองก็สามารถทำ policy นะครับในการที่จะไปจัดการนะครับหรือ automate นะครับจัดการบนความเสี่ยงอย่างเช่น Data ของกลุ่ม Financial นะครับแต่สิทธิ์ของกลุ่ม IT หรือกลุ่ม Engineer สามารถที่จะเข้าไป access Data ของกลุ่ม Financial ได้อย่างเงี้ยก็สามารถทำ policy ในการ remove สิทธิ์นะครับในส่วนของ Data ที่อยู่บน Cloud หรืออะไรพวกนี้ได้นะครับรวมถึงการ protection ครับก็คือการ control data loss channel ต่างๆตัว Force Point ก็จะมีตัว DLP นะครับหรือการ remove สิทธิ์การแชร์ everyone อะไรพวกนี้ออกนะครับโดยตัวที่สำคัญนะครับในการที่ตัว Force Point นะครับจะมาช่วย protection นะครับในส่วนของ sensitive data ขององค์กรก็คือตัว AI Mesh นะครับก็จะเป็น AI นะครับที่นำมาช่วยในการ classify data นะครับซึ่งมีความรวดเร็วนะครับถึง200 มิลลิเซก per ไฟล์เลยทีเดียวนะครับทำให้ในเรื่องของที่องค์กรนะครับจะมานั่ง classify ว่าอันนี้เป็นความลับอันนี้มี sensitive data ไหมนะครับซึ่งมีไฟล์จำนวนมหาศาลเนี่ยทำให้งานตัวนี้มันน้อยลงนะครับทำงานได้รวดเร็วยิ่งขึ้นนะครับแล้วก็จะมีในส่วนของ data security posture management นะครับซึ่งสามารถจะมี discovery นะครับแมปพวก sensitive data นะครับได้ทุกที่หรือ everywhere ไม่ว่าจะเป็น IaaS นะครับบน Azure บน AWS SaaS พวก O365 Exchange Online นะครับ OneDrive ต่างๆ Salesforce หรือแม้กระทั่ง on-prem storage แม้กระทั่ง endpoint นะครับพอเราเห็นแล้วก็เราก็จะเห็น data ที่มันกระจัดกระจายนะครับเราก็จะเห็นว่ามี sensitive data อยู่ที่ไหนบ้างนะครับเพื่อเราจะได้ aware ว่าข้อมูลพวกนี้จะรั่วไหลออกไปนะครับและสุดท้ายก็คือในเรื่องของ leak adaptive protection นะครับก็จะมีตัวช่วยนะครับว่าพฤติกรรมของ user นะครับเริ่มมีการเข้าถึงไฟล์ที่คุณไม่ได้สิทธิ์มีการโยนไฟล์ที่อาจจะมี sensitive data ไปในสิ่งที่ไม่ควรไปนะครับเขาก็จะมีการทำในเรื่องของ dynamic risk score นะครับจนสามารถทำถึงพอ risk score ถึงในค่าที่เรากำหนดอย่างเช่นเป็น high score ที่ 90% นะครับตัว Force Point เองสามารถทำ automatic enforce นะครับในการที่จะ remove สิทธิ์หรือการบล็อกไม่ให้user คนนั้นส่งข้อมูลออกไปได้นะครับนี่ก็จะเป็นโซลูชันในส่วนของ Force Point นะครับซึ่งจากการนำ Force Point นะครับนำไปใช้งานนะครับเราก็จะสามารถช่วยนะครับในเรื่องของการที่จะทำเรื่องของ mitigate data leak ก็คือป้องกันเรื่องของข้อมูลนะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็น sensitive data นะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็นเรื่องของการเข้าถึงสิทธิ์ที่มากเกินไปนะครับเรื่องของตัวไฟล์ที่อาจจะout of date แล้วเพราะว่าใน PDBA เนี่ยอาจจะพูดถึงในเรื่องของไฟล์ต้องมีการทำลายไฟล์ตามเวลานะครับอันนี้ก็สามารถช่วยงานได้นะครับในเรื่องของตัว data leak พวกนี้นะครับแล้วก็มีในเรื่องของ streamline compliance นะครับตัวเขาก็จะมีเทมเพลตไม่ว่าจะเป็น PDBA เป็นเทมเพลตของ GDPR หรือพวกของ HIPAA หรือ PCI มาให้นะครับทำให้สามารถทำงานได้ง่ายขึ้นนะครับแล้วเขาก็จะมี enable AI นะครับก็คือ AI image เมื่อสักครู่นี้นะครับทำให้สามารถเห็นข้อมูล classify นะครับแล้วก็ prevent ในเรื่องของ sensitive data ได้นะครับแล้วก็สามารถที่จะ stop นะครับในเรื่องของinsight leak ต่างๆนะครับเนื่องจากส่วนใหญ่ไฟล์นะครับที่เราถูกส่งออกไปหรือขโมยออกไปจะมาจากข้างในนะครับซึ่งตัวนี้ก็จะสามารถช่วยป้องกันนะครับในเรื่องของ data พวกนี้ได้นะครับและสุดท้ายก็คือสามารถที่จะ consolidate infrastructure นะครับสามารถทำ policy นะครับและหลัก single platform นะครับอยู่บนตัว Force Point ไม่ว่าจะเป็น DLP DSPM ต่างๆนะครับทำให้ลดในเรื่องของค่าใช้จ่าย operation ลงถึง 31% ด้วยกันนะครับแล้วก็ลด policy ถึง 90% นะครับซึ่ง Force Point เองนะครับเขาทำในเรื่องของ Data Security นะครับมานานกว่า20 ปีนะครับมานานกว่า20 ปีทำให้เขาสามารถที่จะมีความเขาเรียกอะไรสตรองนะครับแล้วก็พัฒนาอย่างต่อเนื่องนะครับทำให้ในเรื่องของ Force Point เองนะครับได้รับเป็น Leader นะครับจาก IDC MarketScape นะครับในปี 2025 ด้วยกันนะครับอันนี้ก็จะเป็นในส่วนของ wrap up ในส่วนของทั้ง2 Product SecHard และตัว Force Point ครับ
สุดท้ายนะครับในนามของบริษัทNetwork 365นะครับทีมงานทุกคนนะครับขอบคุณทุกท่านที่ให้ความสนใจเข้าร่วมเว็บบินาร์ในวันนี้หากมีข้อบกพร่องใดๆนะครับต้องขออภัยมาณที่นี้ด้วยนะครับแล้วก็ฝาก SecHard แล้วก็ Force Point ไว้ด้วยนะครับ